In 1936, during the Spanish Civil War, a stronghold of anarcho-syndicalists took over the Catalonian region of Spain and created what was believed to be a fully anti-capitalist and anti-bourgeois autonomous region cunningly referred to as Revolutionary Catalonia. Among the various unions uniting against the rise of fascism in Spain, there was one confederation who were the most prominent, being the Confederación Nacional de Trabajo, or the National Confederation of Labor in English. Even though the socialists, communists, and anarchists lost in the tragic Spanish Civil War, the CNT still exists today, and many revolutionaries remember the CNT fondly for their courage in standing against capitalism and its decline towards fascism.
Is what I would say if shit hasn't hit the fan recently. Yeah, this may be a hard pill to swallow, but I think we need to check on our anarcho-syndicalist buddies in Spain and see how they're doing, because they don't look so well right now. Okay, what the hell am I talking about? But we're talking about Silvia Carrasco right now. Silvia Carrasco is a professor at the Autonomous University of Barcelona. And here's a fun fact for some of you who may not already know this about that university. The university was originally going to be built before the rise of fascism, but because the country was in poverty due to the war and the fascist takeover, construction of this university got postponed until 7 years before Francisco Franco passed away. So you can thank the Falangist movement in Spain for the repression of education in that country, and specifically the Catalan region. Really fucking tragic if you ask me. That was then, this is now. And we're gonna talk about now. Silvia is widely known for her transphobic views, masquerading as feminism. Silvia has no interest in abolishing the patriarchy or challenging the conventions of systemic misogyny and sexism. No. Instead, she is more interested in taking away the rights of trans people's health care, and she is the founder and president of the so-called Feminists in Catalonia. Okay, but what does this have to do with the CNT? Well, first of all, a lot of my American audience might not be aware that the CNT is still around. Just not in the way that it used to exist in the 1930s. But don't worry folks, we will be covering that, and it's kind of tragic actually. So on July 15th of this year, Silvia was given a platform by the CNT, among other speakers, to talk about why trans people don't deserve health care. The CNT hosted this event aptly called the Transit Report, an event that is intended to argue against trans healthcare, specifically targeting the existence of an organization called Transit. Transit is an organization aimed at spreading awareness of trans healthcare and advocating for trans rights. Silvia, being one of the more prominent trans exclusionary radical fascist speakers in the country of Spain, and more specifically the Catalonian Barcelona area, preaches that trans people are mentally ill, which is a weird way to say that she hates trans people, because it makes no sense as to why you would want to take away trans people's health care. Because even if we were to entertain that this ridiculous idea is true, wouldn't this be more of an incentive to give trans people health care? If trans people are mentally ill, wouldn't we want to give trans people the health care that we deserve? And I don't know, my friend, why the hell would a feminist be against giving people health care? Like, that literally does not add up at all. As you can tell, she is a TERF. And I say the word TERF not with the feminist moniker in there. She's a fascist. And I don't use the term fascist lightly. There's a reason why we're talking about her in a fascist context, and that is because she's friends with fascists. Sylvia and Jose Arasti, who is another transphobe, filed a complaint against the Spanish television network TV3 because they conducted an interview that would have put their own transphobic views on television.
Yeah, it got canceled.
And I know that part is silly, but that's not even really why we're talking about it. The reason why is because of their lawyer, who's going to be representing them in court, Angel Escalano Rubio. Sorry for my lack of pronunciation of European Spanish. Is a fascist who is a far-right Catalan nationalist. So yeah, a feminist working with like fascists, that's like antithetical to feminism. Fascists don't give two shits about women's rights. The way fascists organize with women is to essentialize the women's role in the kitchen. They view women as an object to obtain, commodifying and by extension objectifying women. So this notion that she is a feminist is absolutely absurd and falls really flat on its face. Anyway, you know, like Sylvia is very active in TERF spaces, as you probably guessed at this point. She has also attended this conference known as Trans Law, the Expert Appears, which is a transphobic conference where the rhetoric of trans people being mentally ill springs up. Keep in mind, this event was not hosted by the CNT, but the CNT has had plenty of opportunity to, you know, guess that this is something that they shouldn't platform. So now you're probably wondering, my friends, why the hell is the CNT platforming a TERF, and by extension, a fascist and fascist sympathizer? Isn't that like literally the opposite of what we have learned in Spanish history? Why the hell is the CNT organizing with people who want to take people's healthcare away? What the hell? Well, my friends, that's a great question, and I've got an answer for you. But you need to let me cook first. You see, in that same university that she works at, there was a student protest, and during these organized demonstrations, Sylvia gave a fucking blacklist to the Catalan police of organizers and activists, names of people who were involved in the student protest, which is like not something that you would ever expect an anarcho-syndicalist to do ever. But my friends, you gotta understand something here. That student protest was not organized by the CNT. In fact, would you be surprised if I told you that right now the CNT is against unions electing their delegates in a democratic election?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
They have been against the concept of elections for unions since 1979. And so members of the CNT have been fighting for an entire decade as to whether or not they should allow elections for their delegates. And thus 1 decade later, in 1989, the CNT would split off, and thus those leftover people would go on to form the General Confederation of Workers, otherwise known as the CGT. And by the way, the CGT were the ones who organized that student protest. You know, the protest that Sylvia ratted out to the police. So the CNT, I hate to say this, has bastardized its own legacy within the last 3+ decades. Shit. This really beams a shining light on a glaring issue within anarchist spaces. As an anarchist myself, my goodness, this is rather heartbreaking. Now look, other branches of the CNT have been calling out the Barcelona branch for doing this, and of course the CGT has been calling this shit out as well. Anarchists across Spain are not taking this quietly, and good for them, honestly, but here in the English-speaking world, we don't really know much about this. In fact, it was the Houston branch of the IWW who made a statement about this.
To all the workers of the world, we at the Houston General Membership Branch of the Industrial Workers of the World have come together to make this message emphatically clear. The transphobia endorsed and promoted by the Barcelona local federation of the Confederación Nacional de Trabajo at a recent event is nothing short of outright treason against the working class. By platforming individuals who question the right of transgender and gender non-conforming people to exist, CNT-Barcelona attempts to divide the working class against itself and attack the most vulnerable among us. This cannot be tolerated by anyone who claims to be working for the emancipation of the proletariat, regardless of where they reside. No one who yearns for the collective liberation can ignore or support the ongoing and coordinated genocide of our fellow workers of transgender experience. To do so is an act of dehumanization that not only continues the same narrative used against other LGBT+ identities, particularly our gay and lesbian comrades of the past, but invokes the same bigotry used by imperialist powers to permit and ignore genocide against the LGBT community to this day. The speakers at this event were well-known right-wing sympathizers and collaborators, and their main speaker, on top of being a bigot, is responsible for the arrest and imprisonment of 15 fellow workers. This act is a blatantly fascist heel turn from everything the CNT and IWW have stood for and fought against since their inception. On top of this, the event centered around the presentation of dangerous right-wing misinformation about people who choose to detransition. Detransitioning is a choice that people are entitled to make in pursuit of an identity that is right for them. However, evidence show that on average, only about 3% of people who have transitioned to another gender have expressed some form of regret. Most people who detransition do so due to transphobic social pressure rather than for their own satisfaction. Another study concludes that less than 1% of people who have detransitioned have done so because they felt that their initial transition was not right for them. For context, knee replacement surgery has a famously low regret rate of 6 to 30%. As such, we at the Houston IWW call in unison with our LGBT+ siblings of the CNT for CNT-Barcelona to be unconfederated, and to make known our stance that all bigotry and its attempt to disrupt and divide us will be met with more than denouncement and, in fact, outright hostility. We refuse to condone transphobia through inaction and refuse to tolerate such condoning from any organization we affiliate with. Therefore, we encourage other IWW branches and members to make their own statements and formally request that the IWW, International Confederation of Labor, and National Confederation of the CNT join us in officially condemning the transphobia of the CNT-Barcelona and affirming that transgender and gender non-conforming rights are human rights and workers' rights, and that the revolution will not sell out any of our most vulnerable comrades. Our hearts and revolutionary spirit go out to our comrades in the multitude of CNT Federation taking a stance and calling for action, unity, and solidarity forever. I just want to take a pause for a minute to give a huge round of applause to the Houston IWW. Houston IWW, by the way, that resides in the state of Texas, which is one of the most fierce anti-trans states in the United States right now, bar none to probably fucking goddamn Florida. And admittedly, it feels really weird admitting that the CNT has the same political positions as, what the hell, Ron DeSantis.
And I want to also mention that the main headquarters of the CNT has not really commented on any of this shit that is going on within the Barcelona branch. So, wow. Your silence is deadly, homies. I think the big takeaway here is that sometimes we do need to remember to, figuratively speaking, kill our heroes. I want to remind my audience as well that we are in stage 8 of the genocide against trans people, at least here in the United States. I can't speak on other countries. Russia's not looking good right now. And it's really nauseating knowing that even the people who you would think have your back don't actually have your back, and that's fucking sad. I remember making a call out video against main transnet like a few months ago, and I really felt bad doing that, but I kinda had to because we need better solidarity than this, homies. But I think as anarchists, we can only gain to learn from the mistakes of our own contemporaries. Our ability to grow and learn, even when it proves to be difficult, is what separates fascists from anarchists, and it's ultimately what separates reactionaries from revolutionaries. As hard of a pill as this video is to swallow, I hope what you learned from this doesn't really discourage you, but only makes you want to organize even further. It should inspire you to be more intimately connected and involved with your community. Organizing, building grassroots mutual aid networks and coalition, getting your elbows greased up through direct action. These are the principles that I hope that you take away from this lesson here. We now know how to not build solidarity and mutual aid networks. Because today our hearts break for the failure of what the CNT became. But our solidarity, it makes us stronger. Solidarity forever, comrades. I wish you the best.